Hello YouTube, this Skip coming to you live, straight out of Real Hot 6 Aquatic Kennels. Big Hobo right here is taking care of his offspring. Hobo and the female bar have a ton of fry behind this clay pot. As you can see, they're very attentive to the fry. They've actually been taking very good care of the fry, considering all the potential predators on the right side of this aquarium. And there's a catfish in here as well that could have easily snatched some of the fry up during the midnight hours. But they have a lot of it. I mean, it's a lot of the camera's not picking it up because the fry is way too small. And she has them down in that corner right there in the gravel, and there's some behind the pot as well that Hobo is making sure that he corral in that one section right here where she's hovering over. I can see some of them moving, but I don't think the camera's picking it up. And as I mentioned before, Hobo is not off of my bar Midas bloodline, meaning he does not have any isolatic genes whatsoever in his DNA, not to my knowledge, at least. I know Nico explained to me that Hobo parents was one bar Midas and the other one was an orange Midas. Now, what particular bar Midas, I don't know because I haven't seen the parents. I can just go by what I see in their offspring, and that's Hobo. It seemed more like the bar Midas that was bred to create him were more than likely an Armorilo. So let's touch on that subject. I'm making this video by special request. A lot of people have been asking me what's the difference between all the bar Midas species. And I say bar Midas species rather than subspecies because I truly believe, and this is my theory, that the Midas species is a super species within itself. And you can go online and look up super species. I just didn't make that up. And my definition of a super species is a species that have the genetic coding and chromosome in its DNA to produce different types of subspecies of itself and in its own. Meaning that the genes can mutate. And in doing so, they create different variations of the host gene. Now, some of you guys might be lost on that one. You might be, oh, Skip, you losing me now. Grassroots terminology. In essence, the Midas can produce different type of subspecies and characteristics based on the DNA coding within its genetics. Also, another way of mutating or producing chromosomes. Chromosomes makes up the genes. You have to look up some of these terms, and I may touch on that a little bit. The genes can mutate, people, due to environment. Environment means mind and means surround. So whatever surround your mind or whatever surround the minds of these fish can also alter its genetic characteristics, meaning whatever environment that these fish are in, depending on the severity of the environments, can alter its genetics coding so it can adapt. It's called adaptation, so the fish can adapt to environment. We're going to really get deep. This is going to be another one of those video series that's going to be so-called controversial and going to be all on the internet, Facebook, and all the pages, and people going to, you're going to notice that people are going to have sharp opinions about my theories and what I say, but I back everything up with facts and documentation. But they won't just come with facts and documentation. They're just going to come with emotional beliefs and what he say and she say. Who said this and who said that. This expert said this expert said that. All I have to say is this. If you have an opinion, prove me wrong. Bring your documentation so we can go over both mine and yours. And then we can come up to a probable and logical conclusion about the information presented. But, so far, it hasn't happened. And I've been in the hobby for 40 years now, and it hasn't happened. I've been on the internet sharing information for 10 years now, and it hasn't happened. I've been on YouTube since 2008, and it still hasn't happened. But we'll see, maybe something to change. So, one of the reasons why we have so many different variations of Bob Midas is due to the Midas species' complex genetic structure. Woo, Rhino is looking exceptionally good. So now, let's take a look at some of the different Midas species variants or subspecies. Okay, now let's take a look at the red-head isolatus. Now this is pretty obvious, hence the red head on this fish. They're one of the easier variations of Midas to recognize and describe. This is a beautiful illustration of a red-head isolatus. Let's look at some other photos. Here's a photo of a red-head isolatus, most likely male. He has an awesome rhino hump. Very beautiful specimen. This is another illustration of a red-head isolatus. The head is not showing too much red in it, but as you may know, depending on the environment that the fish in, the color of the gravel, the backdrop, it would display a more reddish colored head, or the genetics. This right here has the build of a red-head isolatus, but it's not displaying the red head that you normally see. Now I have noticed that sometimes red-head isolatus throw off offsprings that doesn't quite display the red head all the time, as you see in this photo. But the body structure is usually consistent, like this one in this photo, with a little bit of red here and there, but it's not really showing a pure dominant red head like this fellow right here. Okay, now let's take a look at some Armorilos, a couple of holgoboons, and then we're going to look at what we call a regular old school Midas. Okay, now check out this regular Centinellas barred Midas. Looks very similar to an Armorilo, a Heloensis, even an isolatus. In fact, this is supposed to be an isolatus. I don't see the red head, but it says red head isolatus. I don't see it. Another picture of an Armorilo. Armorilos. Chancho. Armorilos. Holgoboomers. Now you can clearly see a difference between the holgoboomers and the rest of the barred Midas subspecies. They look very similar, but they're narrow in bulk and girth. They're more streamlined and aerodynamic fish than your per se normal barred Midas species. And that's for a good reason, but that I'm going to explain in a separate video, talking about the origins of the holgoboomer. Okay, here's some other photos of Armorilos. Check them out, people. Check these out. These look totally different from the other Armorilo photos that we just finished viewing. These are all supposed to be Armorilos. Here's another one. Here's another shot of a large Armorilo, and supposedly a small one, which looks very similar to a sanagui. Here we go again. Okay, now that we have seen the redhead isolatus, the Armorilos, a couple of holgoboomers, and the regular Midas, barred Midas, let's take a look at the black devil, aka the sanagui or sagittae. Right before you is an illustration of a sagittae. Nice thick bars, dark, low-centered, streamlined body. Face and head area reminds you of the shape of an arrow. Let's take a look at another one. These are two sagittaes. Here's another photo of the black devil sagittae. Now that we have seen a few illustrations of a sagittae, let's take a close look at a closely related relative of him, the xyliosa. Okay, as promised, let's take a look at the Amphilopas xyliosus. Look at the streamlined body, dark coloration, thick bars. Look almost identical to the sanagui. In fact, if you ask me, I would say they are one and the same species. They are too closely identical. And this is a wild pair. This is a photo of Lake Apoyo of these species. Let's move on. Here's a Jeff Rapp's photo of his Zaliosis. And as I stated, they look identical to the Sagittae. And it's my belief that they are one and the same, meaning these are the same exact fish, just different geographical locations. As I stated before, how did the fish get in those crater lakes? How did they get in Lake Apoyo? Who's to say native people didn't try to farm them and place them in that lake to grow them out for a food source? And they just so happen to evolve differently. Slightly different, but so close in contrast that you can clearly see that these species are one and the same. I'm willing to bet. Here's another photo of one, Zalios. I'm willing to bet that if you was to do a DNA strand of these two species, the numbers will come out almost identical. And DNA, when you're taking DNA, people, this is one thing you need to know about DNA. It's about percentage. And I guarantee you the percentage of chromosomes being exactly alike between these two particular species will be almost identical. Now, chromosomes are like pieces of a puzzle that go in the DNA. They have to mesh in order for the cells to reproduce. You have to understand that while we continue our talk and discussion about these different bod species of Amphilopas. Now, in closing, I want you guys to take a look at these two bod Midas, because I have tons of videos and DVDs in my house and VHS tapes of cichlid videos. And take a look at these two pure bod Midas battling for supremacy in territory and the right to breed.
Territory guarantee the species will be spread out, ensuring food for all. These fights can be dangerous, sometimes fatal, but even when strength is ill-matched, it is the intruder who is most often driven off.
That was pretty interesting, huh? As we take a look at Lake Apoyo, Hilo. These are the isolated crater lakes that I mentioned to you guys. How did the fish get there in the first place? And how is it they evolved into looking like the different variations of Midas species that we see today? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is only part 1 of many to come. So make sure you check out part 2. Coming at you real soon. And believe you me, it's going to be a whopper. We're going to get deep into these different species of Midas. So I'll leave you with this photo here of a chancho with fry. Until next time, this Skip, you know the saying.